the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there, and welcome to episode number 66 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D, and there's no happiness in Mudville. My iMac 27 is in the shop because a good old Catalina update that's knocking everybody flat on their backs. So they're working on that, and I'm trying to do what I can on my little laptop here, and I can't see the details I need to see. You're going to get old someday too, you know. And so we're going to have a look this week at something I call puzzlers. Things we just cannot figure out. Oh, there are a bunch of them. And I think you're going to end up this episode maybe scratching your head too. So let's get right into it and have a look. What better place to start with weirdness than my buddy Laszlo Shabalix. He's almost as strange as I am, so I'm kind of proud of him. And speaking of strange, this looks like a big old mailbox with a big old Pinocchio nose sticking right out of the center. Is that nuts or what? And check out the locator dot below and to the left. A cubicle box with a rim and a tube coming out of the center, like a primitive box camera. Whatever these things are, you have to admit, they seem a little bit out of place, don't they? This looks like a Picasso sculpture to me. I mean, if this is plain old erosion, it rises to the level of serendipitous genius. That means nature's pretty smart in a random way for my Iowa friends. I have absolutely no idea how to classify this one, except to call it a puzzler. Just in time for Halloween, it's a bony white arm and a withered hand reaching out from beyond the grave. So, is the arm and its hand organic? Probably not. In fact, it may just be a rather amazingly carved rock, another remarkable and even improbable product of wind and sand. Or could it be part of a statue? Or perhaps a robotic arm, formerly used in industrial production of some kind? Whatever it is, its resemblance to a humanoid arm is both striking and a bit disturbing. Now this is strange. You really have to get down into the nitty-gritty to even see it. 4 evenly spaced rectangular lights in the shadow of that overhanging rock. They look like windows, don't they? As if a small craft of some kind was tucked away in a safe place. Or maybe they're reflections. But think about that for a moment. The angle of the sunlight is right, but what would reflect the sunlight that brightly and that evenly? Gold-tinted windows? Or maybe polished gold? This one's definitely a puzzler. And before we leave, look at the large curved stone just in back of it. That looks like a badly eroded pillar to me, but it could also just be a rock. If you've been into this weirdness for a while, you know we've discovered what could be a wide variety of skulls on Mars. If only 1 out of 100 are real, well, that's enough in my book to make the search worthwhile. My buddy Lanya Gabor found this one, and you know the first thing I thought of when I looked at this was the Star Child skull that caused such a ruckus a few years back. It's not an exact match, but those ocular orbits and nasal passages definitely give it a creepy, organic look. My buddy Thomas Mikey Schroeder Jensen is an important voice on the anomalies scene, and he often finds some really thought-provoking stuff. I call this a ghost penguin, just for pigeonholing purposes. It's about 4 to 5 feet tall. It seems to have feet, but As you move from the feet upward, you can see it's transparent on the left side. You can see the background right through it. It's jet black with a white stripe running down the middle of its head, and it has two beady white eyes. The only thing I can figure is that maybe it moved upwards suddenly as curiosity snapped this image, like something jumping into the air like a bird taking off. That may be why it's transparent on the left side, because it's a time exposure. Whatever it is was moving faster than the camera's exposure time. But even if that's the case, what in the heck is it? You can always trust TJ to come up with something either bizarre or just plain amazing. Okay, I'll admit it. This one bothers me. See, I have an inherent Terran-based size bias that precludes me easily believing in a race of miniature Martians like so many people do. And yet, I, along with other researchers, continue to find miniature dwellings, tiny artifacts, and more strangeness that seems to suggest otherwise. You can clearly see that this is a disk with a scalloped edge. What's more, the dome on top and in the center, as we would expect it to be, appears to be translucent, made of plastic, glass, or some other material. And inside, two eyes. I mean, are they stereo cameras, sensors, alien heads, actual eyes? You can see them clearly. Go ahead, say it. It's a miniature flying saucer, right? I really don't want to believe that. But there it is, defying reason. Do they send Oppie over for a closer look with the cam? Of course not. At least not publicly. We've been telling NASA for years that there's liquid water on Mars. The way I look at it, the proof is in the pudding, which is why I called this a pudding puddle. There it is, right in front of your eyes, a rather large puddle of liquid water. You can see the reflections, the saturated sand on the left side, and yes, I know there are anomalies in this image. I'm interested in the water. I just wish NASA were. A pigalo? Really? I'd better explain myself. You know, I grew up in Iowa, and I've seen stock in all manner of life and death, so I was immediately struck by how much this anomaly looked like a large porker slumped in death. Pigs sleep on their sides, of course, but a pig that dies suddenly will slump down on all fours. There even seems to be a tail stump in the right place, a rump, a waist, and even legs. But when you get to the head, all bets are off. The first thing that popped into my mind was the growth that forms the base of a water buffalo's horns. So, what do we have here? Unfettered speculation says we have a large animal, at least the size of a water buffalo, suddenly slumping in death as the global cataclysm that was Mars' death sentence enveloped land, sea, and all life. Any hair would have been stripped away by the thermonuclear blast. According to Dr. John Brandenburg, he had a lot to say about this. And as the carcass gradually turned into a mud fossil, the thinner and more fragile horns broke off, leaving only the thick skull plate to which they were attached. Voila! You have a cross between a pig and a water buffalo. A piccolo. If it's just a rock, and it could be, you still have to explain the bilateral symmetry inherent throughout, even to the point of compound curves. I'll stick with Bigelow for now. Are you ready for a steampunk robot? This almost looks like 1950s science fiction. Let's do one of our famous inventories. At the top right, a circular cap with a hole on the right side. At the top and bottom, fitting holes with a big bolt sticking out right in the center. That oval opening in the center Do you put stuff in there, or does stuff come flying out when you get it running? The mouth-like part is a clean and radiused cut on top with a lower jaw, so to speak, that has big, square, evenly spaced teeth. The outside of the jaw is symmetrically radiused inward. Then you have those little dangles just below in the shadow. This is weirdness on a popsicle stick. Mike Singh is one researcher who's made any number of important discoveries over the years, but he seems to have completely disappeared from the scene lately. This was snapped by the HiRISE orbiter. You can see how this massive structure spans a canyon. Examine it carefully from one end to the other, and you'll find all kinds of things you missed in the first glance. On the right side, is that a glint of sunlight on a glass dome or canopy, or just a white boulder thrown into the mix? Whether it's a bridge, a building, a wrecked spacecraft, or a natural formation, I have a feeling whatever this is, we'll get a visit once we have boots on the ground up there. Oop, check that. It's already been thoroughly explored and documented by our 20 and back folks. Don't ask me to explain, I'm crazy anyway. This one ignited a firestorm of speculation, most of it quite misguided and fanciful. People claimed it was a mining machine climbing a cliff, except in X3D you can clearly see it's behind the cliff. So what is it? Something formed from a geological process? If it's technology, what exactly is it supposed to do? It makes me crazy that I can't peek around the edge of the cliff to see the rest of it. And isn't it only natural that NASA refused to drive the rover in any direction to get a different angle and a better view of it? Now, I really do admire the truly brilliant people at NASA, but sometimes I think they named the rover Curiosity as a joke. Hey, thanks for stopping by today. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Hit that thumbs up for me. Subscribe too if you like it. And remember, be well.